Okay, go.
Okay, welcome everybody to the EmployAble, a world without barriers, mentor orientation. For those of you who can see the chat box, there's a URL to link to the slides that we'll be using, and Tom is recording this, so we'll have a record of this session and people will be able to access the video. I'm Steve Brown, and I'm the principal investigator for EmployAble and also facilitating, along with Neil Jacobson, the mentoring. And we'll come to who everybody is involved with the EmployAble staff in a minute, but I'm going to move to slide 2. And I think probably all of you know this, but just in case, EmployAble is a model virtual employment orientation and support center. It is funded by the Kessler Foundation, which is a non-profit foundation in New Jersey. And EmployAble began in 2012. It's funded for 2 years. And we're funded to build this EmployAble site and to hopefully help individuals with employment and being ready for employment, finding employment, and retaining employment. So when I say we, Megan, Tom, and I all work at the Center on Disability Studies, which is officially an organized research unit within the College of Education at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, which means Honolulu. And we're using the virtual environment Second Life, the virtual world Second Life, as a primary platform. And we're facilitating, in addition to what I mentioned, employment skills training, networking, mentoring, and employment resources for both people with disabilities and employers. I'm moving to slide 3. Who is EmployAble? So I mentioned myself. I'm somebody with a disability who has been working in disability rights advocacy organizations actually for about 30 years and came back to academia in the early 2000s when we moved to Honolulu. Megan Conway is the co-principal investigator, also a person with a disability, and has been here a little bit longer than I have at University of Hawaii. Has been the PI of different projects and also coordinator of different projects. Tom Conway is the project director, and Rick Shankles is a content specialist, particularly for veterans. He's a retired veteran. And Madeline Harcourt is a content specialist for hidden and learning disabilities. And I was going to say Steve. I and Megan and Tom and Madeline were the primary people on this list who worked on the grant application to Kessler. And then Mary Lou Matsuura is our administrative assistant, and so you all may get or may have seen emails from her. We also have 2 partners, Virtual Ability, which is a nonprofit organization based out of Colorado. Alice Krieger and Ann Ludwig, or Emmy Kapiolani, as she's known on Second Life, and Alice is Gentle Heron on Second Life. They're the partners who are building the EmployAble site. As we discuss content with them, they do the actual build on EmployAble, and as at least one of you knows, maybe more, they're also the ones who do the training on Second Life. And they're offering more training next week, so if any of you haven't done the training yet, we'd like to hook you up with that next week. And if you could email me about that, or I'll email you also, we'll try and hook you up. And the other partner is AbiliCore, which is the brainchild of Neil Jacobson, who's on this call as well. And Neil is also working on mentoring. He's also a retired vice president from Wells Fargo Bank, and is also working with contacts with employers and helping us to understand what employers are looking for. And then we have an advisory board. We didn't list the members of the advisory board here, but we have about a half a dozen advisory board members. They're all over the country. And I should say Neil's based in California, in Oakland. And the advisory board members are all over the country. They're, I was going to say primarily people with disabilities, but they might actually all be people with disabilities. And they have various skills ranging from expertise in assistive technology and universal design for learning to employment to many other skills. And the advisory board meets twice a year, and those meetings have been a combination of happening on Second Life and by conference. I'm going to stop there and ask if anybody has any questions. Okay, so I'll move to, what number is this? Slide 5, which is the purpose of EmployAble, which is to build a model virtual reality employment orientation and support center. Sometimes we say orientation, support, resource, and training center. We're using Second Life as a platform to provide training, networking, mentoring, and employment resources for people with disabilities and employers. And I also wanted to say that some of this may sound a little bit repetitive to some of you, but one of the things that I've learned over the years is for many people, it actually is helpful to say things more than once. So that's part of the purpose of this. And just checking in on the chat. So we're designed to meet the needs of people with diverse disabilities, really all disabilities, but we have a particular emphasis on veterans and on people with traumatic brain injuries. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that there are a lot of veterans with disabilities from the wars that we've had in the past 20 years or so, and also with traumatic brain injuries, and there's a lot of other people with TBI, traumatic brain injuries. And as we wrote the application for Kessler, we focused on those two populations as targets, but it's also open, EmployAble is open to people with all disabilities. So, what is Second Life? I think everybody knows that, but just in case, it's a virtual world. There's a definition on slide 6, which is that it's a computer-based simulated environment. Users interact with other users via avatars through graphic or text representations of themselves, and they can utilize chat, voice, video, or other forms of communication. And just like with the kind of technological issues that we've had with this call, we have similar ones sometimes when we use Second Life. So actually, on most of our Second Life meetings, this is partly in response to Anne's question, we've started not using the Second Life voice chat when we're on Second Life for meetings and using Skype for voice. So it's one way of being creative with the technology. Moving along to slide 7, we have a focus of 3 areas on the EmployAble Second Life site. They're Skill Builder, Access Info, and Matchmaker. And when we originally started this, we saw this as 3 rooms in a building. But as it's expanded and grown, and as we've learned more, we now have 3 buildings. So each of those buildings or each building has those areas in it: Skill Builder, Access Info, and Matchmaker. And we also now have a street, so we have a lot of other buildings on our Second Life site, from a coffee shop, which is frequently where we meet, to a bank, to a clothing store, city hall, so a lot of different buildings, and a print shop. And the purpose of those is so that people can actually practice different kinds of skills on the Second Life site. Moving along to slide 8, which is Skill Builder. This is a lot of text, so Skill Builder enhances participant skills in areas employers have identified as critical to employment success through the use of interactive, self-paced curriculum and practice areas. We have a lot of information and resources about Skill Builder, both on Second Life and on a website, the EmployAble website. And one of the things that we've learned during this process is that we're trying to match everything that's on Second Life on a web platform, because not everybody has access to or likes Second Life. So we're doing that. So these tools include looking at current employment skills and challenges, self-evaluation of knowledge and skills, and we have a lot of videos that have things like practice interviews and show what goes right and what may not go right in an interview. Identifying interview skills and practice in a simulated interview situation, and learning about job techniques and tools and looking for a job using these tools. Moving along to slide 9. The second building is Access Info, and that has, as you might guess, lots of information for employers, employees, job seekers, relating to hiring and retaining people with disabilities, including resume building, employment supports, and job search. And the third one is Matchmaker, and Matchmaker is where we look at making connections with people with disabilities, mentors, and employers. So it may be at least the first building that you'd want to familiarize yourself with. And I'm at slide 10. So with this particular building, we're looking at connecting employers and employees via social media. For example, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Doesn't say that on the slide, but we're using LinkedIn a lot. It says an EmployAble blog, but we haven't actually done that yet. Email announcements, listservs. We're encouraging people to submit applications and to get reviews of them for various kind of jobs. We can use, and we intend to use, Matchmaker to do actual interviews, so people can do a simulated job interview, and it can be recorded, and people can get feedback from mentors and hopefully employers. And to connect people with disabilities, the participants, with successful mentors. So that's one of the things we've been looking for in mentors, who can help guide them through the interview and employment process. And I'm going to stop again and ask if anybody has any questions, or if Tom or Megan or Neil have any comments.
No, I don't have any.
Nope, me neither.
Okie doke. Then moving along on slide 11, beginning to get to the meat of where we are right now. We're in the beginning stages of a pilot study. We've been recruiting people with disabilities who are either 18 or over and U.S. residents to provide feedback on the EmployAble, here it says, Virtual Employment Orientation, Resource Support, and Training Center, site content, features, and use. And again, as you see, if you're looking at the slide, the focus is on people with traumatic brain injuries and veterans, primarily as our target populations, but We have people with all kinds of disabilities who have signed up for the pilot study. And where are we with the pilot study? That's slide 12. We have at CDS an annual conference called the Pacific Rim International Conference on Disability and Diversity. It's every spring, and this year it was at the end of April, and we did a workshop about EmployAble, a half-day workshop, and that was where we kicked off the recruiting for the pilot study. So since then, we've been recruiting pretty much in every way we can think of, which is included listservs, social media, in-person contacts, email contacts. I'm sure that most of you, and referrals, of course, so most of you got hooked up with EmployAble in one of those ways. I'm just looking at the slides to see what it said here. So I didn't look today. I was doing other stuff, but as of yesterday, we had 39 people who had filled completely out the pre-screening survey to become pilot study participants. Our goal is 50. One of the areas that we don't have as many people as we wanted in is veterans. So if any of you have contacts with veterans or access to veteran sites, we can use some assistance in recruiting in that area. We're going to be targeting that in the next couple of weeks. And then moving to slide 13. The current number of mentors is 7, plus Neil, plus the EmployAble staff. So we're all going to be participating in mentoring in some way. We are looking at two kinds of mentoring, group mentoring and individual mentoring. So with group mentoring, we're looking at groups of around 5 people. We'd prefer to do that mentoring on Second Life because the purpose of the project is one of the purposes is to evaluate how the Second Life EmployAble site works. One of the things we've learned in the past couple of weeks is how difficult it is to get people from different time zones together at the same time. So we're looking at similar time zones, people, mentees or participants from similar time zones and mentors from similar time zones to be in the same groups or facilitating the same groups. And we're also looking at people with similar interests. So we have a kind of a sifting to do through the people who have applied and preferably the people who have gone through the Second Life training to start a couple of groups, and we're looking at doing that in the next week or so. And then individual mentoring, working with individuals rather than groups, or perhaps somebody who's in a group but also working with them as an individual, and using Second Life and other technologies such as Skype. When you hear me take a breath, it's partly because I'm also looking at the chat box to see if anybody's saying anything, and also at my email to see if anything's coming in there. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to stop there again and ask if there's any questions or comments. Okay, so moving along, we have a reporting, going to slide 14, we have a reporting mechanism that we're in the process of getting up onto a survey site, and it's very close to being done, but not quite done. So when it is, I will send everybody the URL for the ways that you can access the form. It's called a Mentor Contact Documentation Form. And what we are asking is that every time you have a mentor meeting, that you fill out this form so that we can track what's going on with the mentoring, with the mentees. We're aware of any issues that come up or any resources that folks may need. We actually use a very similar form in another project, and it works really well. And for those of you who may be aware of this, all of the forms that we use are approved by the UH Institutional Review Board. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, that's fine. For some people, it will mean something, so that's why I said that. And moving to the next slide, which is 15. Yeah, making sure I didn't skip any. Okay, so now it's really time for me to stop and ask if there are any questions or comments, concerns, whoops, hit the wrong button, etc. I think I saw. So Neil is asking Second Life or Skype or email or phone is okay for mentoring. And so we prefer that the group mentoring happens on Second Life, but if there's a reason for that not to happen, it can happen in other ways. For individual mentoring, the short answer is yes. We'd still, with email, and texting for that matter, it's kind of what is the word I'm looking for? It's your call, which you might need some help with about whether you report on that contact. You might have, for example, several or even many emails that go back and forth, or text, or phone, or Skype with somebody. With text and email, it might be a couple of lines and it may not be really a meeting, or it could be. So that's just from the reporting standpoint. With Skype, one of the nice things about Skype and the chat is that you can actually keep a record of the chat. Neil and I meet by Skype frequently and use the chat feature, and when we're done, I copy the chat and put it in a Word file. So we have a record of it, and some of it may be not directly related, since Neil and I have known each other for a long time and ask sometimes family questions, but we have a record of all that. And Anne, is it possible to see what the modules are like the participants are reading? Yes, is the short answer to that. So in the buildings, I don't know, Anne, have you been through the training?
Which training?
The Second Life training?
Yes.
Okay, so, and when you did that, did they take you to the EmployAble street or buildings? Okay, so it was, if you go to the EmployAble street or buildings, you can go, for example, into any of the buildings, and you can, on all of the buildings, there are kind of billboards or posts that have information, and also on the website there's a lot of information. I'm writing the website address now, but not well, so this will take a second. Whoops. So on the website, there's actually probably more information at this point than there is in the buildings. You can access a lot of videos, a lot of information. The build on the Second Life site, people, meaning Virtual Ability, are working on adding things all the time. So that's changing as potentially as we speak, and things are being added. Good question. So Anne's question is, are the EmployAble locations and Second Life available to all? Does she need to be a group member or anything? So I'm not sure if this has happened yet. Maybe Tom, you know the answer to this, but actually during the pilot study, the site will be closed to the public and will be open to participants and mentors, project staff. And the reason for that is confidentiality. Once the project's pilot study is over, then we'll open it up to the public again. And so that's a really good question. And what needs to happen, I think, is that Virtual Ability needs to know that you're a mentor so that you can be included as part of the avatars who are let in. And I will do that. You're welcome. That's a really good question, and I'll add that to my to-do list.
Yeah, this is Tom. I'm not exactly sure where Alice and Emmy are on closing it off. As far as I know, it's still open at this point, but they could have closed it down. So if you get an invite, that you should be able to get her on there.
Yep, I will. I'm making a note of that now. Thanks, Tom. That was something I hadn't thought of, so which is just because there's lots of things to think of. So thanks, Anne, for asking that. Okay. Other comments or questions? Great. We never got Damon back, right?
No, I wasn't able to get him back on. Here, I'm going to, no.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Oh, there he is again.
I think we're
He's trying.
Yeah.
Neil, do you have anything you wanted to add? That's got to be so frustrating. I'll communicate with Damon and let him know. Tom, when do you think the recording will be available? Do you know that?
Yeah, it'll be available today.
Okay, I'll tell him that. And Neil's typing. Neil says, when will we get our assignments? Another good question. So, Neil, we're going through everybody who has completed the training, the Second Life training. Because people have done that in different ways, and also I should add that 2 weeks ago, Tom did an orientation, so for participants and mentors both. And so, and that is recorded. That was done through a web platform called Blackboard Collaborate, and I think I sent that to you all, but if I didn't, I can. So for various reasons, it was a little unclear who all did the orientation and the Second Life training, and we're trying to get the correct names for that. And as soon as we do that, which we're working on now, we will start handing out assignments. I will start handing out assignments.
Hold on, we got Ryan here.
Okay. looks like he's having some internet. Hey, Ryan.
Hello.
This is Steve.
Hi, Steve.
And we've been here for a bit, so we've actually gone through all the slides, I think. And if you have your chat on, if you go up to where is it? I can make this a little bit easier, I think. Let me just do this again. I just posted a URL where you can see all the slides that we've gone through, and Tom has been recording, so that and Tom did the same thing. So you'll be able to access that. And at this point, we were responding to questions.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thanks for joining us. So I see that Anne is typing. Ah, okay. So Anne says that she got interrupted and asked when mentor assignments will come out and will they be near us geographically. So we've done a couple of things, Anne and Ryan, because Ryan didn't hear this either. Tom did an orientation, actually he did 2 orientations 2 weeks ago. So a number of participants and some mentors went through that. It was similar to this, but a more general orientation to the project without a focus on mentoring specifically. And we've also had a number of people who've gone through the Second Life training. Was that last week? I'm getting my days mixed up.
Yes.
But anyway, have gone through the Second Life training. However, because of various kind of technical things that are probably not that interesting to you guys, we're trying to figure out exactly who went through the orientation and the training. And so we're going through that process now. We're probably pretty close to having the names. Excuse me, I'm gonna take a drink. And as we do that, we'll start making assignments. So I will do that. So what we will be looking for is time zones, interests, whether it will be a group or individual, if it matches mentor skills. It may not be perfect matches for folks, but I will do my best to try and make those matches. Did that answer your question, Ann?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good.
But I didn't hear an answer. I'm guessing since you're not asking that, that was an okay end. When does the pilot end? Neil asked. So we have a little flexibility with that. Has been scheduled for June through August, but it's probably going to go a bit longer than that because of all the kinds of issues that we've been talking about, and not everybody is starting at the same time. That's one reason. The other reason is we had 35 people that when we got that number, we decided that was a good group to start with. We didn't want to wait to try and get 50, so we've started with those first 35, and when we get another good group, we'll start again. So probably at the end of this month, which is coming up quickly. So Anne is asking, given the technical issues with Skype and SL Second Life Voice, is one-on-one mentoring via phone okay? And the short answer to that is yes. One of the reason I'm kind of qualifying that is that part of the purpose of the project, a large part of the purpose of the project, is to evaluate how things work on Second Life. So for the group mentoring especially, we're hoping that that will be able to happen on Second Life. For the individual mentoring, the other technologies are certainly okay. And we know, obviously, we know that there's lots of potential issues with technology. So the other primary purpose and goal of the project is to be successful. So we definitely want to offer alternatives besides Second Life or Skype for that happening. You're welcome. I think I hear typing, but I'm not sure. Might be something else. Oh, see that Neil is typing. Oh, I was also going to add that the project ends at the end of this year. So it's a 2-year project, 2012, 2013. And we're looking at ways to sustain it beyond then. But we don't have anything in place for doing that at this point. But we're putting a lot of effort into that happening. So Neil asked, on average, 1 or 2 hours per mentee per week should be okay. And I would say yes. What I've found in another project where I facilitate mentoring matches is that it's really variable, but it's also a different kind of project in that it's much longer and has some different goals. Since we have a very concentrated time frame here, I think that that would be appropriate, but I also want to add that it will depend on the mentor and mentee as individuals and also on the group. But I think overall you've got a good sense of it. Megan's really quiet, so I want to ask her if she wants to add anything.
I don't. I'm multitasking.
Yep, I knew that.
But I'm keeping an ear in, so you're doing just fine. You're covering everything.
Yeah, thanks. That's so unusual. Usually I forget lots of things. So it looks like Neil and Anne are typing. The next step will be you'll get a link to the recording of this. Anne asked what the next step will be for mentors, what to expect in the near future. So the first next step is you'll get a link to the recording of this session. We're going through all of the people who have done the orientation and the training, and I'll be working on making matches. So what you should expect is to hear from me about groups and individual matches, and that will probably be done by email to begin with. And what was I going to say? We will do that. I will do that as soon as I can, as soon as we go through all of these steps. Since I know this doesn't apply to you, Anne, because you did this, but for any mentors who haven't gone through the Second Life training, that would be a good thing to do as an immediate step when the next trainings are scheduled, which will be for next week. And if you've already done that, then going through the EmployAble site, looking at what's on there, going through the buildings, taking a look at the website, those are all things that can be done now. Don't have to wait for mentor matches for that to happen. And I'm pretty accessible by email, which is on the last slide, slide 15, and you also see my cell number there. And when I'm available by phone, that's the best way to contact me that way. You can also text me at that number. Neil asked, can relationships be changed and by whom? So the short answer to can relationships be changed is yes, and by whom? Mentor or mentee, which I would then facilitate that change. So to add a little bit to that, the way to do that is to go through me. So Anne asked, when is Second Life training scheduled for next week? And that she still needs to configure voice on SL. So Megan, do you have that information off the top of your head?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
When the Second Life training is scheduled for next week?
I do not have the information yet. We're working with Virtual Ability on exact times, but we are aiming to have several trainings next week. We'll let you know as soon as we know.
Thanks. On my clock, I see we have about 2 minutes left. So any final questions or comments? Then I want to thank everybody, and Tom, thank you for doing the recording. Thanks everybody for being here. And one of the things that I will do is can I do this? Tom or I, whichever one of us can do this, will capture the chat as well, and I can send that to you all by email if you'd like that, so that you can go through, excuse me, what showed up on the chat. Okay, Anne says that would be helpful. You're welcome, Ryan. Thank you. Okay, last call for comments or any other comments or questions. Thanks, everybody.